Hello friends, welcome back to my channel you guys. Oh my gosh, it has been such a long time since I've posted on this channel. I think it's been like over a year. I've really been wanting to do a true crime series here on my channel, so that's what we're gonna be doing today. I'm gonna try and upload true crime videos every Friday, so be on the lookout for that. And if you like true crime, you like darker type content, be sure to subscribe. Without further ado, let's get right into it. So the case I'm going to be talking to you guys about today is the unfortunate disappearance and murder of Mike Williams. Jerry Michael Williams was born on October 16, 1969. He grew up in Bradfordville, Florida. He was the son of a Greyhound bus driver and a daycare provider who raised him along with his brother Nick. They weren't the wealthiest of family growing up, but their parents did the best that they could to provide for them and give them support and love and affection. Their parents also saved as much money as they could for both boys so that they could attend private schools. Their mom wanted this for her boys because she really wanted them to have a good education and she wanted them to have an opportunity to attend a really great school. So once the boys were in high school, Michael, known as Mike, I'm just going to call him Mike throughout this video, was really starting to excel in school, and he even served as the student council president, which is really impressive. He also played football, and from what I read, he was a really good athlete. So he was overall really excelling in school. He had really good grades. He was a really smart guy. He did really good in sports. A lot of people liked him. He had a lot of good friends. So he really had everything going for him. He also began duck hunting, which became his new favorite hobby. And also during this time, he started to become close with a fellow student by the name of Denise Merrill. It was said that Mike and Denise had known each other since middle school, so they already knew of each other. They weren't as close back then, so it wasn't until these later years in high school where they really started to develop a stronger friendship, and that ultimately led into a relationship. So soon Mike and Denise started dating, and they just seemed like the absolute perfect couple, you guys. He was a star athlete playing football. She was the school's cheerleader. She was really pretty. She had a lot of friends, and so them together was like the perfect match. Also during this time, Mike's best friend by the name of Brian Winchester, who he grew up with, they had known each other since they were really young. And so at this time, Mike's best friend Brian started to hang out with Denise and Mike a lot more, and then he ultimately ended up dating a young lady by the name of Kathy. So unfortunately, there aren't that many photos of Kathy out there. This is the only photo I'm able to find, so this is what I'm going to use throughout the rest of the video. So it was like the ultimate friend group. You have Brian and Kathy and Mike and Denise. So the four of them ended up becoming like this best friend group, and they would do everything together. They all had the same interests. They were all the same age, and they hung out all the freaking time. They ended up staying best friends all through high school and even into college. So fast forward to 1994, Mike and Denise got married. Mike's family was really happy that he was marrying Denise. They thought she was a really honorable woman. She was very responsible. She was really smart, and they knew that she would be such a perfect wife to Mike and that she would ultimately be the perfect mother to their future children. Now get this, in the same year, Brian and Kathy also got married. So when I tell you they did everything together, they did everything together, you guys. So soon after Mike and Denise got married, Mike ended up buying them a house, and it was said to be a really nice house, you guys. Like, it was phenomenal. So it's safe to say they were pretty financially stable and at such a young age, which is really impressive, and they were ultimately living the good life. Mike made so much money, in fact, that Denise did not have to work if she didn't want to. She was able to stay at home and be a housewife. So she was just living the dream. She got to be home, take care of the house, take care of her husband. She didn't have to get a job. She got to enjoy all of the luxuries of being at home and having her husband take care of her. She wore all of the nicest clothes. She drove the nicest cars. She had a beautiful home. She always had her hair done, always had her makeup done. She had it all. So in 1999, Denise and Mike had their first child. They named her Ansley, and they were just so happy and so grateful. Now, I kid you not, guess who also had a baby in the same year? If you're thinking Brian and Kathy, you are correct. In 1999, Brian and Kathy had their first son. So I'm telling you, they were the ultimate best friend group, you guys. They went to the same college together, they partied together, they did all of these things together, they got married in the same year, they had their kids in the same year. Their bond as a group was starting to really strengthen, and it really showed. Around this time, after, the couples got married and they had kids, they were done with college, they were kind of settling down into their adult lives. This is around the time that they started to go out more and party and drink, a lot more than they did in college, because they did also, have their fun when they were in college. But a little bit later on in life, they decided that they wanted to have a second round at that party stage, and so they were out at bars, they went to clubs, they went drinking. And so during this time, there was a night where they started to discuss possibly having sexual relations with each other. I don't know whatever happened with that, though. I don't know if they actually followed through with that, but whether they did or not, that's really not any of our business. So that same exact night that they started to have these conversations about possibly having sexual relations together, this is the night that Brian started to feel like he was really sexually attracted to his best friend's wife, Denise. He started to feel like Denise felt the same way. He would see her, and the way that she would look at him, according to Brian, the way that Denise would look at him was giving him like, I want you vibes. And it felt very flirtatious. I'm not really sure who made the first move, but it was obvious to one another that they liked each other, they were attracted to each other, so they started flirting with each other behind their spouse's back. Soon after this, Denise and Brian started to talk a lot over the phone behind Mike and Kathy's back. They started to become closer and closer, and they eventually ended up developing strong feelings for each other, and ultimately these super long late night phone calls ended up turning into meeting up for hookups. Brian would meet Denise anytime that he could. If there was an opportunity for him to go meet up with Denise, he would. And so because they needed to keep this relationship on the down low, they would meet up and have sexual relations in Denise's car. So as time went on, their relationship ended up just getting stronger and stronger. The attraction was stronger. They really started to feel like they wanted to be with each other. But mind you, Denise is married to Mike, and Brian is Mike's best friend. Like, that's his fucking best friend. I cannot imagine my husband sleeping with my best friend. Like, that's so fucked up. I have no words. I have no fucking words. Mike and Brian, because they were best friends, they did everything together, they had similar interests, they would go duck hunting a lot, and it was their absolutely favorite thing to do. They both love being outdoors. They like to go take day trips to the lake. They like to spend time together as besties. And so there was a day where Mike and Brian went on a 20-hour road trip together, and Brian would later go on to say that during this road trip is when Mike started to vent to Brian about how he was having marital issues. And of course Brian is just sitting there like, shit, it's because of me. But of course he's not going to say that, right? So he's kind of just sitting there letting his best friend vent to him, knowing damn well he's the fucking reason. And so Mike started to tell Brian, like, she's being really distant, she's not sleeping with me anymore, I feel like we're so disconnected, like, I don't know what happened. Brian's just sitting there like, yeah, I wonder what happened. Mike also told Brian that he started to notice money was being taken out of their bank account, and the amount of money that was being taken out was a little bit more than usual. So Mike actually started to suspect that Denise had like some kind of drug problem. Little did he know she was taking so much money out to fund these meetups and rendezvous and little trips that her and Brian would take. And so Mike is telling Brian all of this, and he's just like what the fuck do I say? Because like, what is he gonna say? Also, another thing to note, it was said that Denise and Brian had made a promise to each other that they were only going to sleep with each other. They weren't going to sleep with their spouses anymore. So during this trip, when Mike was telling Brian that, oh, she's not sleeping with me anymore, like, it's so weird, that in Brian's head, he was like, oh my gosh, like, thank God she's not sleeping with him anymore. Like, he was happy about it, because he was like, I know that's right, she's not fucking sleeping with him anymore because she's sleeping with me. Like, he was happy about that when he heard that. And I'm just like, that is so fucked up. But obviously at this point, Brian and Denise's relationship was starting to become a lot more serious, and they were only exclusively having sex with each other, like I mentioned before. They would continue traveling quite a bit together while Mike was away at work trips, because he would often take these work trips that were kind of like further away. And so while he was away, Denise and Brian would meet up and hook up and do whatever, or they'd take off. As time went on, and as they started to realize that their relationship was becoming a lot more serious and that their feelings were becoming a lot more strong, they soon started to realize that the only person they wanted to be with was each other, and that Mike was in the way of that. So sadly enough, Brian and Denise started to devise a plan to get rid of Mike. And I'm sure a lot of you are thinking, just like I was thinking, okay, so why don't you divorce him and go be with his best friend? Yeah, that's fucked up. You're gonna leave him for his best friend, but you're gonna do it regardless. So do it the right way, get a divorce. But the thing was, Denise absolutely did not want to get a divorce. Getting a divorce to her was like the last fucking thing she would ever do. And there were a multitude of reasons why, one of them being that she did not want to share custody with Mike. She also didn't want to lose all of the luxuries that she had because of Mike. But Brian would later go on to say too that another reason why she didn't want to get a divorce was because she didn't want to look bad. She didn't want her reputation to be tarnished because she's getting a divorce. According to Denise, getting a divorce is the worst thing a woman could do. I don't think that's the worst thing you can do. So divorce was absolutely out of the picture. There was no way in hell she was going to do that. So according to Brian and Denise, getting Mike killed was the only way out.
Denise, because of the way she was raised, because of her pride, I guess I can't say all the reasons, but she did not want to get divorced. But she still had a desire for us to be together. Which narrowed the options. Another scenario that we came up with was Mike and I going on a hunting trip together, and there being an accident where both he and I ended up in the water, and he drowned and I did not.
But fast forward to December 16th of 2000, it was Mike and Denise's 6-year wedding anniversary. So basically on December 16, being that it was Denise's and Mike's anniversary, they had planned to celebrate at some kind of like resort to hopefully rekindle their love and save their marriage, or at least that's what Mike thought. So Mike was actually going to go duck hunting in the morning with Brian, and then after that, Denise and Mike were going to head off to their trip, their resort, wherever they were going to celebrate their anniversary. So Brian started to tell Mike that there was this new spot he really wanted to take him to for duck hunting. So the two wake up bright and early and meet up to go duck hunting. They load everything up in the truck. They're talking about where they're going to go, and they actually drove separately. So Brian said, go ahead and just follow me there. So later on that day, Mike didn't come home, and Denise started to call family members and ask them if they had heard from Mike because he never came home. I'm really worried. I don't know what to do. And so she eventually ends up calling the police to report Mike missing. Shortly after this, searchers located Mike's boat and his truck, because remember, they went separately. They took their own stuff, and so Mike's boat and his truck was still there at the spot that they had just been. So of course, searchers find this and they're like, okay, so if his stuff is here, where is he? And it started to become a little worrisome because that's not like him. That's really weird for him to be gone and his stuff is still here. Like, what happened? But of course, nobody knew that Brian was the last person to be with him. So it's safe to say Brian wasn't on anybody's radar at this time. So many people within the community spent long hours searching for Mike. They were out there. They looked up and down that river. They tried really, really hard to locate something, anything.
But the next day, they get their first break into Mike's mysterious disappearance. They find his boat.
You're pretty certain that this is where he launched the boat?
Yes. There's no question about the boat being launched here due to the fact that his truck and trailer was right here also.
And where was the boat found from here?
The boat was found approximately 300 yards to our right. It was apparent that it had been launched by one individual, the way the boat had been turned around and apparently pushed out.
Mike's shotgun was there still in its case. There were some decoys on top of some other equipment.
But there was no Mike.
During this time, there were many theories of what could have happened, and one of the biggest theories that started to circulate was many people believed that Mike could have possibly been eaten by an alligator. And this theory was actually really popular within the community, and a lot of people really thought that that was the reason why he disappeared. However, Mike's mother, Cheryl, did not believe this for 1 second. She knew something else had to have happened, and she was not going to give up. Well, you guys, it wouldn't be until 17 years later of Mike missing that the truth would finally come to light. Okay, let's just pause right there. I want to quickly mention some of the things that occurred within those 17 years of Mike missing, and then we'll come back to the truth being revealed. So after Mike's disappearance, Brian and Denise's relationship started to really blossom, and now they felt like they had the opportunity to be together like they had always wanted. So shortly after Mike's disappearance, Brian and Denise finally felt like they had a chance at being together and starting a relationship. And so their relationship really started to blossom, and they became really serious. So serious, in fact, that 5 years after Mike's disappearance in 2005, they ended up getting married. That's right, folks. So Brian ended up divorcing Kathy and going on to marry Denise. So Denise Williams was no longer Denise Williams. She was Denise Winchester. Brian ended up moving into that same house that Mike had bought for himself and his wife. Some family and friends surrounding Denise and Brian thought that it was sort of strange that they ended up together, despite Brian being Mike's best friend and Denise was married to Mike. Like, people definitely thought this was a little weird, and they were like, okay, like, who the fuck does that? And like, how long has this been going on? And like, what is going on? So to the people in their lives around them, this didn't really make a lot of sense. And it started to raise some red flags. Despite everybody's opinions, despite all of the red flags and suspicion in everybody, Brian and Denise lived happily for 7 years, and they ended up getting divorced in 2012. Reports say that they got divorced due to Brian's sex addiction that Denise was not happy about. She did not want to be a part of it, and she was just tired of it. She was like, okay, this is really bothering me, and if you're not willing to change, then I'm gonna leave. So she really wanted to get a divorce from him, but Brian did not want to get a divorce from Denise. He really loved her and he wanted to stay with her, and so he really fought for Denise to stay with him, but there was no way. Denise was done. She was checked out of the relationship. She wanted nothing to do with him. She wanted to divorce his ass, which is so fucking crazy because I thought divorce was not good, Denise. If you remember, she was not willing to divorce Mike because that was the worst thing ever. Anyway, so it didn't matter to Denise how much Brian begged for her. She did not give a fuck. She was ready to leave his ass. She was checked out and she wanted absolutely nothing with him. So in 2015, she served him with divorce papers. On August 5th, 2016, as Denise was on her way to work, she was talking on the phone to her sister, driving along, having a good old morning, when all of a sudden she saw somebody climbing out of the back of her seat. That is so fucking scary. Imagine you're just driving, you're on the phone, you're having a great day, and you look in your rearview mirror and you see somebody climbing from your trunk to the front. Like, fuck no, I would have crashed that fucking car. There is no way in hell. So she obviously freaked out and she was like, what the fuck is going on? But she soon discovered that it was in fact her ex-husband, Brian Winchester. So according to Denise, she claimed that Brian took her phone away, began yelling at her, telling her where to go. He was like yelling directions at her. However, she didn't comply. She was like, I am not having any of this. You need to get the fuck out. So he ended up showing her a gun and he held it up to her side, which then she was like, oh shit, okay. So in extreme fear, Denise decided that she was just going to comply to Brian's demands. However, instead of going directly to the location that he wanted her to go. She ended up pulling into a CVS drugstore like in the parking lot, and she just parked like right in front of the door. So once she was parked, they decided that they were just gonna have a calm conversation, and Brian ended up telling Denise that he was gonna take his life because he didn't want to have to live life without her. Now he was like, I begged you to stay with me, you said you didn't want to, so I can't be without you, so all I have left is to take my own life. And he was really trying to reassure her that he wasn't gonna also take her life. You know, he was like, I'm gonna, you know, take my life, but you are safe, I'm not here to hurt you, whatever. So the two started to just, you know, try and have a calm conversation. They tried to talk things through, and luckily Denise was able to calm Brian down. So she ended up driving to a nearby park where Brian's truck had been. So she took him to his truck, he got out, he went into his truck, and she was sitting there like, what the fuck just happened? Like, this guy's fucking crazy. He got into his car, he started driving away, and he pulled up next to her, and he started to apologize to her. She was like, yeah, no problem, it's alright, like, whatever. He leaves, and she's like, fuck that, I'm going to the police. She got the fuck up out of there, she went straight to the police, and she told them everything that had just happened. She sat in the investigation room, and she spoke to them about what had just happened, and she was telling them that she's really in fear of her life, and that she's scared of him, and that he needs to be locked away. Like, get him the fuck off the streets, out of my life, lock him up, I want nothing to do with him. And so the police did just that. Brian was arrested and charged with kidnapping, domestic assault, and armed burglary, with 2 charges being a felony. Denise also requested protection orders, saying that she feared for her life and her daughter's life. And so there was a hearing the following week, and she went to the hearing, and she said that she could neither eat or sleep since the incident because she was so scared. So the court decided to hold Brian without bond. So in 2017, Brian was sentenced to 20 years in prison for kidnapping, with credit for 502 days time served, to be followed by 15 years probation. That is a long fucking sentence, and he was not happy about it. And so this would be the beginning of the unraveling of what truly happened to Mike. So while Brian was serving his sentence in prison, he started to grow a strong hatred for Denise because she was the reason that he was in there. Of course, he did commit the crime, so I'm not saying like she's to blame, but in his mind, he was like, she's the reason I'm here. She got me locked up. This is all her fault. I hate her. And so he was like, you know what? If I'm gonna go down, she's gonna go down with me. And so he decided that it was finally time to tell the truth about what happened 17 years ago when Mike went missing.
I had told him that we were going to go to a secret special spot to go hunting, and that he needed to bring his waders. I had to make sure that he brought his waders because the belief was there was kind of like there still is probably like a duck hunter's myth that if you fall overboard with your waders, you're going to sink really quick and drown. We got to that area that I knew was a deep area, basically stopped the boat and got him to stand up. And when he did, I pushed him into the water. I didn't know if he was trying to swim or I didn't know what was going on, but what I came to find out or eventually realized was he was taking the waders and the jacket off. And he was panicking, and I was panicking, and none of this was like going how I thought it was going to go. So I loaded my gun, and I made 1 or 2 circles around, and I ended up circling closer towards him. And he was in the water. And as I passed by, I shot him.
Brian ended up telling investigators that the disappearance and murder of his beloved best friend Mike had been planned for years by him and Denise. He stated that his relationship with Denise started to become a lot more serious than they both had anticipated, and they wanted to devise a plan to get rid of Mike so that they could be together. Brian claimed, however, that it was actually Denise's idea to have him murdered. On May 8th, 2018, Denise Williams was arrested at the Florida State University as she left work to celebrate her daughter's 19th birthday. So a grand jury ended up indicting her on charges of first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, and accessory after the fact. Prosecutors continue to keep details of the crime to themselves, saying that they would share them in court when the time comes. They did say, however, that they were seeking to have her bail denied. Mike Williams' body was eventually found in October of 2017 near Tallahassee. It's safe to say his mother was absolutely devastated by this news. She had devoted the last 17 years, you guys, actively searching for her son, and she tried to push investigators to help put more effort into the case, and she really worked herself to get justice for her son. And it pisses me off and it makes me so sad that it took 17 years. I feel like the justice system really failed her, because after he went missing, there really wasn't any investigation. There were no interrogations. There was nothing. Like, nothing happened. They assumed that he was eaten by an alligator, and they kind of just wiped their hands clean and said case closed. And so I feel like they really didn't put in that much effort, and that is so sad and disappointing, and I cannot imagine how his mother felt. Starting on New Year's Day in 2012, Cheryl began writing one letter a day to Governor Rick Scott, asking him to either have another agency besides the FDLE investigate or appoint a special prosecutor to do so. She had written over 200 letters and always kept the hope that she would find her son someday. Like I said, it's just horrible that it took her that long to finally get justice and to finally get some answers. And although it wasn't the answers that she hoped for, of course she would love to bring him back well, healthy, and alive, it was still a little bit of closure for her. In January of 2020, so not that long ago, Denise appealed her conviction and life sentence. Her attorney argued before the Florida First District Court of Appeals that there was no evidence that she was involved in the commission of the murder. And so unfortunately, in November of 2020, the murder conviction was overturned, but the conspiracy to commit murder conviction was upheld, including a 30-year sentence. So I think it's safe to say that she's not getting out of prison anytime soon. And the craziest part is, to this day, it's been over 20 years, you guys, still to this day is saying she's innocent. She absolutely takes no responsibility for it. She claims that she is absolutely innocent in all of this, and that Brian is lying, and that that's not how it happened. So that, you guys, is the story of Mike Williams and how his best fucking friend and his wife betrayed him. When I first heard this case, I was like, oh my goodness, it really, like, you really can't trust anybody nowadays. Like, you really cannot trust anybody, and it really opened my eyes to see that. I have watched so many cases like this where, you know, it's the people that are closest to you, the people that you think are there to love and support you, you do everything with, the people you grow up with. It's like, it's always those fucking people. Like, why? I 1010% believe that Denise was involved. That is my personal opinion. I'm not saying it's fact, but I personally believe that she was definitely involved. I do believe Brian. I do think that they did this together and that they had the goal of getting rid of him so that they could be together. But yeah, it's a very sad case. It's a very unfortunate case, but I really wanted this one to be my first one because, like I said, this case really stuck with me and I wanted to share it with you guys. So if you guys enjoy true crime stories, like I've said, please subscribe. I'm going to try and upload videos every single Friday. I don't know if I'm going to stick to just true crime or if I'm going to do other stuff. I'm not really sure yet, but if you guys enjoyed today's case coverage, please be sure to subscribe. If you have any particular case that you want me to cover, let me know. I will do my research and try my best. But other than that, I will see you guys next Friday, and thank you so much for tuning in on my first episode of my true crime series. I will see you guys next time. Bye.